With a slow but steady ascent into politics, Yoon Suk-yeol has caused more than his fair share of a stir during his career. He has played a crucial role in many South Korean corruption cases, including the conviction of former presidents Park Geun-hye and Lee Myung-bak for their abuses of power. By the smallest margin in South Korean political history, Yoon took the presidency in 2022 with just a 0.73% lead over the opposition. How does the son of working-class professors work his way up the ladder amid scandal and corruption, ascending to the presidential office? How did President Yoon Suk-yeol get to where he is? Welcome to Neapolitan. Today, we'll look at the current 13th South Korean president, a former public prosecutor and lawyer who recently took office. He also served as Prosecutor General for South Korea until his appointment between 2019 to 2021 after convicting Cho Kuk, an influential figure in the administration of the former president, Moon Jae-in. A fresh face to the post, Yoon narrowly defeated Democratic Party nominee Lee Jae-myung in the 2022 presidential election, assuming office on May 10, 2022. We're going to dive into where he's from, how he got here, and look at the man he is today. We'll look at it broken down into 3 unique sections. In 1960, Yoon was born in the Sungbuk district of Seoul. He was raised in Yeongwi-dong, Seo-daemun district, by Yoon Tae-jong, his father, and his mother, Choi Jong-ja. His father was an economics professor at Yonsei University. At the same time, Choi Jong-ja was born in Gangnam and worked as a lecturer at Wuhan Women's University, leaving her position after getting married. Yoon attended Daewang Elementary School and Zhonggrang Middle School in his youth, later transferring after 8th grade. He graduated from Chungam High School before studying law at Seoul National University. Following the Gwangju Uprising, Yoon and his colleagues staged a mock trial where he acted as a prosecutor, at one point demanding the death penalty for Chun Do-hwan, President of the Republic. Yoon escaped to Gangwon Province following the mock trial. In 1982, Yoon was exempted from national service due to his anisometropia, which is a condition that can range from mild vision problems to altering vision or frequent squinting. Most people present vague symptoms, as this condition is usually found only after routine visits. Yoon later explained that his illness caused him to be unable to obtain a driver's license later. He later passed the first part of his bar exam in his 4th year but failed the second. Yoon struggled to get to his second part for the next 9 years, before finally passing the bar in 1991, which was the same graduating class as Democratic Assemblyman, Minister of Justice Park Byum-kai. Yoon began his prosecutorial career at Daegu Public Prosecutor's Office in 1994 by heading the Special Branch and Central Investigation Department. He primarily, in both offices, investigated corruption-related cases. In 1999, he helped arrest Assistant Commissioner Park Hui-won, involved in corruption, despite direct bureaucratic objections from the Kim Dae-jung cabinet. He worked briefly as a lawyer, but it wasn't long before he was a prosecutor back on his corruption cases. He prosecuted pro-Roh Moo-hyun figures like An Hee-jung and Kang Kyum-won before 2006, apprehending Chung Mong-koo in a splash fund case at Hyundai Motor Company. In 2013, he led a special investigation team looking into the National Intelligence Service's involvement in the 2012 NIS public opinion manipulation scandal. He sought the prosecution of the former head of the NIS for violating the Public Official Election Act. as a result of his accusation of Justice Minister Hwang Kyo-an trying to influence his investigation. He was demoted from the prosecutor's office in Seoul to a position at the Daegu and Daejeon High Prosecutor's Office. Later, Yoon headed the investigators of the Special Prosecutor Team of Park Young-soo, investigating the allegations about the 2016 Choi Soon-sil scandal, which later led to the impeachment of the then-president, Park Geun-hye, in December of 2016. Then, in 2017, the newly elected Moon Jae-in appointed Yoon as the Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office Chief. After his appointment, he indicted 2 former presidents, 3 former NIS chiefs, a former Chief Justice, and 100 other former officials and business executives during his tenure. He also leads an investigation into Samsung with accounting fraud. In 2019, Yoon was nominated as Prosecutor General, which was welcomed by the ruling Democratic Party and the Party for Democracy and Peace. However, the Liberty Korea Party and the Barun Marie Party opposed this appointment, and the Minor Justice Party was neutral. He was appointed in July and began his term soon after, but was ordered to stay neutral. All corruption was to be strictly investigated. However, despite being involved in various scandals, Yoon had not led investigations against Minister of Justice Cho Kuk. Appointed as the new Minister of Justice, Chu Mi-ai took action against several close colleagues of Yoon. She attributed her decision to Yoon's failure to submit his reorganization plan for his department, which she requested. In April 2022, the Democratic Party launched attacks against Yoon, calling for his resignation. In November of 2020, Chun Mi-ae suspended Yoon from his position for alleged ethical allegations, abuse of powers, and interference in investigations of his associates and family members. In turn, Yoon filed an injunction against the suspension order, which was approved, and temporarily halted his suspension. But on December 16th, the Ministry of Justice imposed a 2-month suspension on Yoon, accepting 4 of the 6 significant changes. This was overturned, as the suspension was seen as an unfair process by the court after another appeal. On March 4, 2022, Yoon in turn tendered his resignation, which was accepted by President Moon. Chocolate. Yoon had been considered a presidential potential for the 2022 candidacy, publicly seen as a significant candidate in general election opinion polls. Yoon led as the most favored with 30.4% of the vote, more than the individual support for the ruling Democratic Party frontrunners. He officially announced his candidacy in the 2022 election, registering as an independent candidate with the National Election Commission. His primary support came from conservatives despite being a political independent, and in July 2022, Yoon officially joined the conservative People Power Party. During the preceding election period, Yoon came under criticism for perceived gaffes and controversial statements. He advocated for a 120-hour work week, critiquing Moon's 52-hour maximum work week policy. He advocated for the deregulation of food safety standards, as he believed that poor people should be allowed to eat substandard food at a lower price. He also stated in August that South Korean feminist movements as the reason for the country's low birth rates. Within the same week, he claimed there was basically no radiation leak from the nuclear disaster Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster, as the reactors didn't collapse. In September of 2021, Newsverse reported that during Yoon's time as Prosecutor General, he allegedly ordered a senior prosecutor and politician to file politically motivated criminal complaints against Democratic Party politicians ahead of the 2020 legislative elections to sway elections. It was alleged in the article that Yoon ordered senior prosecutor Sun Jun-sung to file criminal complaints against party candidates for the opposing Democratic Party and further ordered PPP National Assembly member Kim Wong to do the same. In response, Yoon denied the allegations and reported informant Cho Sung-young and the director of the NIS, Park Jae-won, to the CIO. Support for the PPP's primary contender, Hong Jun-pyo, rose sharply after the allegations were published, making him the most significant contender to Yoon since the beginning of the cycle. This came around when Yoon, once again, struck controversy for his racist comments about African people and manual labor. His words spread widely across social media as the racist implications of claiming only Africa still does hands and feet manual labor, which in turn sparked demands for the politician to step down from running for president, which largely fell on deaf ears. In October, Yoon made complimentary remarks about the former far-right military dictator of South Korea, Chun Doo-hwan, claiming that many people consider Chun as having done well in politics. Doo-hwan is a widely maligned figure in South Korea, responsible for numerous human rights abuses, including the killing and torturing of civilians. Yoon came back and apologized for the remarks twice, though when he visited the May 18th National Cemetery in Gwangju, his visit was met with protesters. By a narrow margin, Yoon won the 2022 presidential election in March 2022. Democratic Party candidate Lee Jae-myung conceded defeat early the next day. Yoon won 48.56% of the vote, with Lee Jae-myung following just 47.83%. Yoon's victory was the closest margin in South Korean history. However, upon entering the office, Yoon pledged to abolish the Minister of Gender Equality and Family. This came from a unique context of South Korea, where gender conflicts have become very intense. The new government, as Yoon claimed, would not address gender as a collective, but focus on and respond to individual issues. His state councilors within the government currently only have about 2 women among vice ministerial level officials, gaining some criticism that the government lacks women representation. Yoon appointed a female minister of education and a female minister of welfare, Park Sun-ae and Kim Song-hee, respectively. These appointments set the ratio of female ministers in the cabinet to 30%. Strawberry. In February of 2020, the South Korean government raised the crisis alert level to the highest level to help prevent the spread and inflow of COVID-19, invoking a ban on foreign nationals entering the country. Visa screenings for Chinese and Japanese travelers designated China, Italy, and Iran as quarantine inspection required areas. Since taking the position, Yoon has pledged $400 million to global COVID response initiatives, funding tests, treatments, and vaccines for more impoverished countries. He announced this in May in a speech to a second COVID-19 summit held virtually and aimed towards efforts to end the pandemic and better prepare for future threats. This funding pledge brings South Korea's total donations to roughly $510 million. He showed support for the establishment of a financial fund to help boost pandemic preparedness, which had been provincially agreed on by the G20 countries. On the world stage, Yoon Suk-yeol entered office on May 10th. The Ukraine crisis has presented a unique opportunity, with risks, for the government to expand its foreign policy agenda. The initial response from South Korea was measured relative to close allies, as the Moon Jae-in government supported international sanctions against Russia, but did not impose one's independence for themselves. At one point, the Democratic Party of Korea blamed Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky for provoking Russia. Further deliberation at the time led Seoul to ban the direct export of strategic materials to both Belarus and Russia, like semiconductors, and halt transactions with Russian banks. As Russia is only 12th among South Korea's largest trade partners, these were not considered significant actions. Yoon's government may seek new foreign policy opportunities, and they have opportunities to take a stronger stand on global democracy, human rights, and the rule of law, as well as potentially provide additional humanitarian aid. Leveraging the crisis in Ukraine to help rebrand South Korean foreign policy for a more significant global role carries both risks and benefits. However, many analysts believe the benefits may outweigh the risks. It can strengthen ties to like-minded countries, committed to international law, normals, and democratic principles, generating larger global and strategic reputational benefits. The war in Europe will always feel more distant to South Korea than Europe or the US, and there's a possibility that the government's support for Ukraine will garner questions if the war prolongs from months to years. Without a hardline stance, most of this is analyst speculation as to how South Korea might approach the conflict going forward. If you like this video and want to see more like it, then make sure to leave a like so we know what you think and can continue to bring you the kind of videos you want to see. Let us know if you think there was anything we missed or if you'd like to see someone in particular in the future. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the material we've shown or other videos like this. Check out the other videos on this channel for fascinating looks into historical figures like this. Until next time, this has been Neapolitan, and we'll see you around.